Tune into Nice Radio every Saturday at 7:30 a.m. for A View from the Outside, hosted by Brereton Horne. A View from the Outside takes a look at key issues affecting St Vincent and the Grenadines and gives a global perspective on how these issues are viewed. Host Brereton Horne will examine a variety of topics to enlighten, stimulate debate, and explore solutions. Hear the facts, hear the real-life stories, hear A View from the Outside. Join Brereton Horne at 7:30 a.m. every Saturday on Nice Radio for A View from the Outside.
This society needs a spectacle. It might help us to see some evil. This society needs a spectacle.
On A View from the Outside this week being the 16th of July 2022, we again put the spotlight on fairness, and we invite you to join us on this journey to make your own determination about whether something is fair and what is fairness. The Cambridge Dictionary defines fairness as the quality of treating people equally or in a way that is right or reasonable. And the Oxford Dictionary states that fairness is impartial and just treatment or behavior without favoritism or discrimination. The main elements or ingredients embodied in these two definitions of fairness are definitely worth repeating, and they are: fairness is treating people equally. Fairness is treating people in a way that is right. Fairness is treating people in a way that is reasonable. Fairness is impartiality. Fairness is treatment or behavior which is just. Favoritism or nepotism is not fairness. Discrimination is not fairness. Victimization is not fairness. We first covered this topic, fairness, 3.5 years ago, on the 5th of January 2019. That program was triggered, amongst other things, by the High Court ruling of Justice Esco Henry when she ruled against the Public Service Commission in the case which was brought against it by the Public Service Union, who asserted that its members were unfairly overlooked for promotion. In fact, in one instance, one of their members was overlooked for promotion for in excess of 30 years. In that judgment, Justice Henry ruled that the Public Service Commission failed to observe principles of fairness and that they acted without due regard to the principles of fairness. This week's view is triggered by the headline in a 14th of January 2022 online publication out of St Vincent and the Grenadines, entitled "Fairness is Needed for the Region's Paradigm Shift to be Successful." That publication quoted extensively the Prime Minister of St Vincent and the Grenadines from a speech which he delivered on the 13th of July 2022 at the Concordia Summit in Miami, Florida. The publication, intonated that the Prime Minister was asking for fairness for the Caribbean. And it quoted him as saying, "I am just asking for fairness and reasonableness to give my people a chance to grow and develop sustainably." Any objective observer will no doubt conclude that the request for fairness is a reasonable one, and one that ought to be practiced and exercised across the board in every facet of life, whether or not one is on the international stage. Any objective observer will also scrutinize that request made by the Prime Minister and look at things which are done or practiced in his home country, St Vincent and the Grenadines, and question whether the said fairness which he requested from the major players in the world is practiced by him and his government at home. There is no doubt that some may say that one cannot compare such a request on that grand stage with what is happening on the local scene at home. On the contrary, though, judging from the comments on social media and elsewhere, there are many who say that such a comparison is necessary in the interest of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and to highlight the hypocrisy. It is here that we, on A View from the Outside, ask you, the listener, to look honestly at the situation locally in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and to judge and answer for yourselves, especially bearing in mind that our people need fairness and reasonableness to grow and to develop sustainably. Was fairness exercised when Yogi Farrell, a young woman from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, was treated the way she was by those who should have protected her? Is it fairness when all of the government ministers and others in authority sat back and watched the abuse meted out to her? Is there fairness in the treatment of Cornelius John, who has not received any justice, when he was beaten and shot by those who trespassed on his private property and beat him and shot him and by all reports left him for dead? Is there any fairness in the situation where healthcare is neglected? It is in neglect and remains in a substandard state, where ordinary people have no choice but to accept what is provided for them, yet those who hold the reins of power can fly out at will to be treated by the best in the world, even for a scrape to the scalp? Is it fairness to have a gunshot victim delayed for hours and couldn't be transported from Chateaubriand to the General Hospital in Kingstown to get vital treatment because the ambulance has no gas? Is it fairness that such a thing is allowed to happen to the ordinary Vincentian, yet those in authority jump on a plane for treatment overseas? Is there fairness in the situation where for more than a decade and a half, Marcus de Freitas' property was compulsorily acquired by the government, and to date, the government continues to ignore him and not compensate him for his property, despite a court ruling that he must be compensated? Is there fairness in the treatment of the other landowners who suffered and continue to suffer a similar fate to that of Marcus de Freitas, with or without a court judgment? Is there fairness in the case of Bigger Biggs, where on the action of the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, his multi-million-dollar business at Rabaca remains in ruins for years now, after the government and its agent summarily put him out of business? Is there fairness regarding the case of hundreds of public servants, including teachers, nurses, police officers, customs officers, sanitation workers, and others who were fired from their jobs because they chose not to adhere to the government's COVID-19 mandate and not taking the COVID-19 vaccine? Is there fairness in the vaccine mandate itself, which the government chose to introduce in the dead of night in the parliament of the country? Is there fairness in the refusal to reinstate teachers and other workers whom they have deliberately made unemployed and caused severe hardship for many individuals and their families? Is there fairness in continuing to deny these workers their jobs, especially when thousands have recently mingled together and participated in Carnival without any bother or any threat from COVID-19? Is there fairness in the recruitment exercise in the country? Is there fairness in the way many are still overlooked for promotion? Is there fairness in the way appointments, including consular appointments, are made? Is there fairness in the way scholarships are apportioned? Is there fairness in the way court orders to compensate people who are wronged are ignored? Is there fairness in the experience of many that justice has two faces in the country? Is there fairness in the electoral process or the voting system in the country? Can fairness be used to describe what unfolded after the general elections of the 9th of December 2015 and strong accusations of electoral fraud? Can fairness be used to describe the interminable delay in the court system pertaining to the election petitions which were brought by the opposition? Is there fairness in the fact that such delay continued even when the Court of Appeal ruled that the matters must be heard expeditiously? Is it fair when the legal process is frustrated by frivolous appeals from and by the government of the country on one hand, while on the other hand, it seems that when the Prime Minister sues ordinary citizens, the matters are expedited and ordinary people are slapped with significant sums to pay? Is it fairness when peaceful protests are shut down and protesters are abused by the police and slapped with charges that cannot stand up to scrutiny in the courts? Is it fairness when protesters are suspended from work and left with protracted court cases hanging over their heads? Is there fairness in having Adriana King and Kenson King on suspicion on half pay interminably, seemingly with no compassion as to how they survive? Is it done to serve a warning for others to keep quiet? Can fairness be ascribed to that? Is fairness seen in the way that the pieces are manipulated into place to foist a dynasty from father to son on the nation? Is that fairness? Is that fair? Is there fairness in the distribution of materials, items, and monies which were donated to the people of St Vincent and the Grenadines following the volcanic eruption of La Soufrière? Is there fairness in the lack of accountability and transparency generally in the country, and specifically the lack of accountability pertaining to those donations? Is there fairness in having impoverished an entire nation and having them in extreme poverty? Is there fairness that after such infliction of extreme poverty, the people of the nation are asked to bring their bowl and come? Is there fairness that after such infliction of impoverishment and extreme poverty, the voters are offered crumbs and then demands are made for their vote in return? Is there fairness in relation to the cannabis industry, where the ordinary traditional cannabis or marijuana growers are completely phased out of the process in preference for those who benefit, for the few who benefit? Can that be fair? Is fairness something that could be ascribed to that? If in judging and answering those questions, you conclude, you the listener conclude, that there is no fairness and that the government of St Vincent and the Grenadines, including all of the government ministers, is lacking in fairness, then, on the Prime Minister's own words, St Vincent and the Grenadines does need a paradigm shift. It needs such a shift so that in applying fairness and reasonableness, our people are given a chance to grow and to develop sustainably. Until next week, this is Brereton Horne with a view from the outside, inviting you to send your feedback as usual to aviewfromtheoutside@hotmail.com. We also invite you to visit and like our Facebook page at A View from the Outside. and also to visit and subscribe to our YouTube channel at JMB Horne. Have a pleasant Saturday all, a wonderful Sunday, and a productive week ahead as we put and keep the spotlight on fairness.